Well, hey everybody, how the heck are you? I think it is time for us to get going here today, and welcome to our seminar on surviving an armed robbery. And I have some folks, the ASP CEO Stephanie and our CMO Neil, kind of working behind the scenes a little bit, but I'm going to talk to you at least a little bit in the beginning here. But Neil, I don't know if you are, if you're able to come on screen, but why don't you come and say hi, at least if you would. I guess I am kind of dropping in on you here. I don't know if that's cool. Hey, dude.
How's it going, man? Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. How's things going? You just had a total crash of the computers.
Geez. Literally, it's like 2 minutes to, and the whole house went dark for just a second. I'm like, Steph,
help, pretty please.
Yeah, but everything booted back up and we're back live. So this is awesome. Exciting stuff.
Very good. Okay. Well, I wanted to make sure you guys were doing okay. Everybody on our end should be great. And I am ready to rock. So we have really today, here's what I want to do. With all you fine folks who get to be a part of the show and get to see what we're doing here, I really want you to be a part of this. So this is not just me talking. It's not just us, wonking on here. But what I really want is I want you guys to ask the questions as well. I want you to get in there. So we have our chat going right now on YouTube. So ask questions, talk with us about stuff. I cannot do both teaching the class and this. But Neil, you're going to be back there checking comments, yeah?
I will keep an eye on comments and I'll throw them up on the screen as I can. And then you'll see them from time to time too. And if it turns into something that might be a little bit down the road in the presentation, we may pop up and say, hey, that's coming just next. Just be patient. But for the most part, we'll try to get the questions on there as they get asked.
Awesome. So again, our goal tonight is not to have me lecture for 2 hours. Okay. So our goal instead is for me to kind of have a talking point, and we'll talk through that. We'll watch a video that pertains to that. You might've seen the video on the channel already, but some of these, I purposely picked some that are a little bit in the Wayback Machine that a lot of people maybe haven't seen. So then that way you're like, oh, hey, have I seen that one? Guarantee you it's on the channel. And then we talk about it. And if you have questions, get them out there and get them in the chat. So then that way we can answer them and work them all the way through. All right. Thanks, buddy. Let's get after it and go to, you're going to get out of here. All right, cool. So if you want a copy of the slides, Neil, let's talk about that. If you want a copy of these slides that are coming, I have made a public link that you can get them. So Neil, can you bring that up? Yep. So there's our surviving an armed robbery and evidence-based approach. And if you want the slides, that's where you go. You go to http://get-asp.com/armed robbery. If you go there, I'm going to leave that up for the next day or so. Well, I guess I'll leave it up for a few days for people who are watching afterwards, where you can download a copy of this presentation. That is in Keynote. It's in Apple stuff because I'm a high priest in the Apple cult. So that is in Keynote. And if you want it instead in PDF, I will make one available, but I will have to get you a link to that if you want it. So let me know on that. For those of you who may not know my background to kind of talk about some of these things, I thought I would just kind of update that a little bit. People sometimes wonder, or they go, hey, John, you just talk on YouTube, right? And the answer is no. I actually work really hard to be highly qualified at this. So a little bit about me. I founded Active Self-Protection in 2011. And when people ask me why I founded Active Self-Protection, I tell them so I could write off ammo. That's the honest truth. I could write off training classes and write off ammunition because if I'm teaching, I got to be proficient myself. So company started because I was going to classes. I was a concealed carrier and I started getting into it. I got into martial arts about 06, started carrying a firearm in 06. By about 2011, I was like, man, this is expensive, dude. So I started teaching and got my NRA instructor certs like a lot of people do, and then kind of snowballed from there. So at this point, I have all the NRA ratings. I have Range Master in pistols. I have the Range Master instructor, Range Master advanced instructor. I'm a plank owner, Range Master master firearms instructor as well. I'm a 6-hour Academy semi-auto pistol instructor, shootingperformance.com certified handgun instructor. I have rifle instructor certifications, shotgun instructor certifications. I got about 1,000 hours, a little bit more than 1,000 hours in formal instruction as a student of firearms use. I have over 14 years of martial arts study. I have a 2nd degree black belt in a derivative of Kempo known as Umas, and I'm a white belt in jiu-jitsu. Of course, a white belt means you know nothing, and I admit that. I know nothing other than getting choked out like crazy, and I'm having fun. In terms of analyzing force, I'm a Force Science Institute certified force science analyst. And that is an incredibly important thing to have in this day and age, because it teaches you how humans perform and what is capable, what a human being can do, and how our eyes work and how our brain processes information, and how, especially in an adrenalized state, we make decisions. So incredibly important, and got some more coming from Force Science Institute in the days ahead. Now, my core competency is teaching. Okay, so I spent 9 years teaching undergraduate students. I spent 5 years teaching graduate students. All of that is an adjunct. So I spent a lot of time in the classroom. You know, when you are a tenured professor, you can spend a lot of time doing other stuff, research or politics or, you know, committees and all that stuff. But as an adjunct, you are in the classroom doing classroom stuff. So I taught basically full time for about 9 years. And that's my core competency. Pastored a church for about 14 years as well. So transmitting knowledge and taking the cookies and putting them on the bottom shelf, as we say, is kind of what I love to do. Now, if you go, and of course, you probably found us either through our Facebook page or through the YouTube channel. So you know that on YouTube right now, we have about 1,600 defensive encounters narrated and after action reports, lessons learned out of that. And then there are another 500 or so on the Facebook page that are older. If you go dig back and watch the ones on Facebook, you will just have to forgive me for the production quality. I mean, we just got it going and then tried to get it better as we went. So I still wouldn't say we are like A-list production quality, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to get you great information every day. And I think we do that pretty well. And those ones are still great information. I still stand by everything that I said in those. And in order to get those, people ask me all the time where I get all of our content. And really, it's from you guys. It's from our fans who send me real life surveillance videos literally every day. Stephanie and our team answer the Facebook messages on the Facebook page. And then she gets a ton of emails. I get a ton of emails. And we collate all those together. We probably answer 200 emails a day or messages when we're talking about that stuff. So we've analyzed, when people send those to us, we analyze about 10 for every one that we actually put on the channel. We'll really look through, and then what we're culling those for is, can we really see something on the video? Is this something that has a good lesson? I don't curate for outcomes. I don't, in fact, I look for things that change my theory on stuff. I am particularly, as somebody who's kind of now, I wouldn't call myself a researcher, because researching has a very particular ethos that it has to be, but I'm certainly an enthusiast and somebody looking to be more evidence-based in my training. I look for things that go against my already pre-existing knowledge base. So when I say things like, for instance, and I say this sometimes on Facebook on my friends list, and people get frustrated with me because I say, I've never seen a reload used in a defensive gunfight for a private citizen of any kind. I've seen 2 or 3 times where they actually did, but the gunfight was long over, so it didn't really affect anything. On-duty cops are different, but private citizens, never seen it. People go, well, why would you just tell people not to carry a spare magazine? It's like when somebody asks me, hey, John, should I carry a bazooka? I mean, you carry a bazooka if you want. I've just never seen one used. Although a bazooka in an armed robbery would be kind of cool. That said, I'm looking for those. When somebody goes, man, if somebody says, John, I found a reload in a defensive gunfight, I'd be stoked to see that. I would be so excited to see that, because then I'd say, hey, here's one for you. For the longest time, for instance, I've told people, if you drop a gun, that gun has gone to Narnia. I've never seen anybody drop a gun and pick it up and use it in a gunfight. And then in about 4 months' time, I actually saw 2. One that a guy dropped his gun and then ended up getting it back and using it in a fight that was an extended fight. And then another one that a guy picked up a bad guy's gun that he had dropped. The fight was over, but he didn't know it was over. And so all that on there. Anyways, I'm always looking for something that that says, no, John, the way that you do things is maybe you need to adjust that and add this information to your cadre here. And so we're always looking for that. So that's just a little bit about me, about my background, and about kind of how we go about doing things. And so if you have any questions, especially, I mean, we've got about 100 of us here tonight on the live video. And so it's a relatively small group, and I am totally open to answering your questions. Totally open if you say, hey, John, what about this? Or what's in your background on this? I was in the military. Sparkman V2 says, should you stop carrying your bazooka? No, I mean, I'd say carry your bazooka everywhere you go. I think that's awesome. And if you could just, you know, whenever you encounter somebody, just say, yo, Joe, and get that on camera and put it on the internet so I can see it and enjoy. That would be amazing. All right, let's look at some commonalities on armed robbery. So if you've been around the channel a little bit, you'll know these very well, but you might not. And so I'm going to explain each one. Number one, these are always in transitional spaces. Kind of by definition, an armed robbery, I'm not talking about in your home like a home invasion, right? So home invasions is its own subset. But when we talk about an armed robbery, is a little different than perhaps the subset of of all robberies. So an armed robbery here, we're talking about somebody who is armed with a weapon who was coming in there. So Stephanie said that there's a question here, and I'm not sure where it came in. Neil, I don't know if you've seen it. Somebody asked if I've been in a defensive encounter. And that's a great question. Yeah, the truth be, have you ever been in a real world defensive situation? Yes, several times, in fact. So, I mean, obviously, I think that when we talk about teenage stuff, I don't mean getting in fist fights and those kinds of things. I got in a couple of fist fights as a teenager in high school and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. As an adult, since I became a self-defender, I have had several instances. I have used OC spray 3 times and twice on dogs, and I have had a defensive firearms encounter of some kind in 2 different instances. One time I have had a gun out and on somebody, thankfully did not have to press the trigger, but had a muzzle on somebody and was willing to press the trigger. And one time I had a hand-on gun in holster. So I don't want to belabor all of those. And the honest truth is that the details of that are kind of inconsequential to us becoming better self-defenders. Have had those, have never, thank God, had to shoot somebody, have never had to really brawl with somebody in an adult context. Did a couple times as a teenager, like I said. Those are different, I'd say. So I hope that answers your questions. If you got more questions about that, I don't want to go into all the specifics because then you're telling war stories, and I don't think those help. So transitional spaces. Number one, a transitional space. Let's talk about this. All armed robberies have this. Is anywhere that allows a bad guy to prey on a victim with an element of surprise. So it allows for a surprise attack. That surprise can come because the bad guy can get in quickly and you don't see him beforehand, or allows him to hide in plain sight, something like he's pretending to be a customer or something like that. Number one, so allows an attack with an element of surprise. Number 2, allows for quick getaway, allows the bad guy to escape the area and get away with the valuables that they want very quickly. So that's why things like inside a concert is not a transitional space, because it's very difficult. There's lots of cops around, very difficult to get away quickly. Inside of the secure area of an airport, in a cubicle farm, at work or whatever, in the middle of a mall, not really transitional spaces. Third thing that it has to have is that it has valuables available. So, but of course, usually now, and the bad guy is almost always right, your person, you have some valuables on you. You almost always have your smartphone on you. And most Americans, something like 80% of Americans have smartphones now. And of course, so that's a valuable piece of property. People have their wallets, ladies have their purse, those kinds of things, okay? So transitional spaces have those 3 elements. And if you have those 3 elements, you're in a transitional space. Paying attention to those. Those happen all the time at convenience stores, very common. Within 20 feet of the entrance of any retail establishment, parking lots are transitional spaces. Sidewalks are transitional spaces. Cash registers are transitional spaces. So those are the kind of things. Now, armed robberies are almost always in public spaces. Not 100%. I mean, you could, like I said, a home invasion is a subset of an armed robbery that happens in a home setting, but that's a different kind of setting. And so we're going to kind of say there. Now, lastly here, it's this idea that armed robberies are territorial violence, all right? So people ask me all the time, they'll send me somebody getting murdered, basically, an assassination. And, guy just comes and puts a gun to somebody's head, presses the trigger, and they say, John, how do you protect yourself from that? And the answer is stay in school, don't do drugs, and stay out of the mob. And don't steal someone's spouse. That's really how you stay out of those. But instead of that, territorial violence is I'm going to threaten you with force if you don't meet my needs. I'm going to draw a line in the sand and say, this is my territory, and you're not coming out of the box that I just drew into you until you give me what I want. So that's a territorial violence, which is different than predatory violence. Predatory violence is about the process of violence and about enjoying violence for the sake of violence. That's different than territorial violence, where your goal is to reap resource. So pretty much what we're talking about is resource predation. And so that means I want your stuff, or in some limited cases, I want you. Some kidnappings are a part of armed robberies because not because they want to hurt the person, but because they view the person as valuable and that somebody else attached to the person has money. And so then they can reap those resources by taking this thing. So territorial violence is a part of armed robbery. So we got to understand when we're going to talk about these, number one, that you've got to worry and think about transitional spaces. And if you've been a fan of the channel for any kind of length of time at all, then you understand how much I talk about transitional spaces and recognizing that that's kind of my term. Now, it's not that I'm the first person ever to use it in self-defense. Kelly McCann, as early as the 80s, used it in its architectural sense. In an architectural sense, a transitional space is like an entryway where you go from inside to outside, or where you go from one kind of space, like a office environment, to a big open environment or something like that. Now you have a transition between spaces. And Kelly used it in SWAT raids and stuff, talking in that vein. That's not how I'm using it, though. So I use according to the defensive definition, and that's pretty much my defensive definition, okay? So let's keep those in mind. All right, next thing, let's make sure that we understand when we actually get to the actual shooting. Marcus Tanaka asked, can we talk about the recent looting and robberies too? They're really different things. So I don't mind talking about it. I mean, when you talk about looting, so the bottom line is what I would argue here, and I think we can talk about that and spend a minute here. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. People ask me, John, how do you survive a riot? Number one, don't be there, right? One priority is don't be there when it starts. Now, I'm not saying don't go protest. If you feel it's important to go and protest, I view that as an important function of our society. I view that as a civil right that I'm 100% behind. And so if you feel the need to protest, rock on. That said, the second it starts to get anything resembling violent, these kind of things brew. And the second you see somebody starting to get any kind of violent, that's your turn to leave. That's like, nope, somebody started throwing rocks or somebody started chanting about, beating up the police or something. You start to feel the electricity in the air, get the heck out of there, okay? When we talk about looting, somebody looting someone's business, your best bet is to make sure your insurance is up to date, to not be there when it starts. If you know there's going to be a protest that has a chance to be violent, your shop is there, move as much of your inventory as you can out of the way, secure the shop as best you can. But I don't recommend, people saying, oh, I'm just going to stay in my shop or whatever. Make sure that your insurance covers civil unrest, and maybe that needs a rider and you got to pay that rider. Okay, I'm going to pay a couple $100. If somebody said to me, John, it's going to cost you $500 to not have a gunfight today. And I can go, yeah, the stuff is insured and it's insured against civil unrest, and that policy added on cost me $500 for this year or whatever. Yeah, I'll pay it right now. Then I don't have to worry about having a gunfight. I can go home where I don't necessarily have that. Now, some places, your home is over the shop or whatever. And I think that's for a lot of people not the case. But if that is the case, now you're talking about home invasion, and the principles of surviving a home invasion are the same. Would I recommend, again, staying in your business so then that way you can defend it with firearms against looters? I wouldn't, quite frankly. I certainly wouldn't take firearms and stand in front of somebody else's business. I think there's a ethic here, or a motivation of doing the right thing and protecting people's property. And protecting property is morally good, right? So people have a right to life, liberty, and property. And protecting that is a moral good. But when if I said, hey, you got a high likelihood of getting in a gunfight here with a bunch of people, unknown number of people of unknown capabilities, unknown armament, and you're doing that for something that's not even yours. So you get nothing if it is successful, and you go to prison if something goes wrong or you die. Those all seem bad risk analysis to me. So that's kind of my answer to rioting and looting, that I recommend you just stay away as best as possible and insure your stuff. If at all possible, remove as much of it as you can, the valuables that you just can't live without, on a nightly basis if you have to, and stay out of there, man, because unnecessary gunfights are bad. If you live over the shop, then you got to defend your home, right? You got to defend your ability to be safe in your home. And when somebody invades your home, that's different than if they are invading a retail environment. Simple as that. Hope that answers your question. If you have follow-up questions on there, ask them, and we will get after them as well. All right, let's start talking about some stuff. We've been talking for 20 minutes already, for gracious sakes, okay? So what I have here is I have several lessons for you. In fact, 10 of them that I have, 10 instances that are the keys, in my opinion, beyond the gunfight stuff. So again, here's the thing. Next slide, Neil. All the principles of surviving a gunfight apply here, okay? So we're going to see an awful lot of gunfights happen in these next 10 lessons. And at the end of the day, if God forbid you get in there and you choose to draw a firearm, now all the principles of surviving a gunfight apply here. You have to recognize, man, we are going to worry about marksmanship. We are going to worry about getting the gun out fast. We are going to worry about all those things. And all the principles involved in surviving a gunfight apply in surviving an armed robbery. Because if you choose to draw a gun, now we have a gunfight. That's a talk for another day. So just get all those. All right. Now, of course, let's see our next one here. Our first lesson, paying attention buys you time and time buys you options. Raise your hand electronically if you've heard John say this on the interwebs. If you've heard John on the channel say, paying attention buys you time, time buys you options. I think this is incredibly important. So many people, they find out they are in an armed robbery when it's already happening and already right on them. When if they were simply paying attention to their world, then they wouldn't have had that problem. And the key, the master key to paying attention is curiosity. The master key here is simply being curious of your world and not having your face stuck in your freaking phone, right? Take this thing right here and put it away, because your smartphone is an attention vacuum. And it will take you completely away. Next thing in public, I know people love listening to music, and I love music too. But man, when you're in transitional spaces, you need these ears. So sometimes you can use them with transparency or whatever, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend take these suckers off, put them away while you're in those transitional spaces, because that helps you pay attention. So this particular gunfight that we are going to see here is actually the first gunfight in Wisconsin after Wisconsin enacted CCW legislation. And I'm going to give you a little background here. Our good guy, it was the first time we're going to see a firearm used by a CCW holder, and it took him over 2 years to get his gun back at the end of this gunfight. And I'll tell you why it took him 2 years. It took him 2 years because he's Muslim, is really what it boils down to. There was a whole lot of discussion. Whoa, is that okay? Now, I don't think that has anything to do with the righteousness of a gunfight. I think all people, regardless of creed, have the right to defend themselves. And so I think it's a basic human right. So let's go to that one, Neil. Let's get up, make that full screen. And then let's talk through this one. So you're going to see the guy come through the door here and rob this grocery store. So see him jump and come in real quick and start announcing this armed robbery. So you see this here, and he's starting to get everybody and push them around. Hey, Neil, can you hide that thing that says StreamYard is sharing your screen, bro? And notice here that he's pushing everybody around. Now look at the top left. Uh-oh. Now we're looking at Neil's stuff. All right, let's try this again.
See, I told you. It does this every time. All right, I think we're good, though.
All right, get after it. Click. Can you hit the go button? Did we break it? Nope. There it goes. So I sped this up for the sake of time. Dude's coming in. You're going to see him come up, start talking, start pressing on people. Hey, I want to, you guys to give me all your stuff. Now look at the top just under the left side. You're going to see some people here who are paying attention to what's going on. Now that's our good guy right there at the top of the screen. And you notice there that he's seen what's coming and he starts backing off. He has his wife with him there in the gray coat, and he is going to push her down that aisle. And now you got to ask, what's the best option here? Is his best option to just walk down that aisle with his wife, or is his best option to step in with all these other people in the way and what's going on? So we're going to see a couple of challenges here. Now watch what goes down. You're going to see him kind of creep in because the guy's not paying attention to him. So there he is in the top left now. He's going to kind of creep his way down while this dude is shaking this register down and everybody else just standing there. Now watch our good guy. He's going to get his gun out here, but it's not chambered. So it goes click. Uh-oh, I need a chamber around in my gun. And now he starts shooting. Now a dude runs off. He actually didn't hit him. And all that stuff. So I think there's also a great lesson here in making sure that your gun is chambered, because his best shot he missed because he had an unchambered firearm. But notice the fact that he was paying attention. And so because he was paying attention, he had options. He didn't have to go into a particular way or a particular destination. He could have just said, I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and just get the heck out of here. He chose in that instance. He had the option to engage, or he had the option to retreat. Now, I think we can talk about, was it a good option? It would have been an acceptable option for him to just back out of there with his wife down the aisle and say, I'm out of here because I'm getting myself out of the danger zone. I think personally, that's an option he could have chosen. Now, some people would say, but that's morally reprehensible because he had the ability to stop things and all the other people were at risk too. That's also an option. Notice again, paying attention gave him those options. If he had only seen what was going on when the dude stuck a gun in his face, I got no options at that point. Also, he had an option that even carrying with an empty chamber, if he would have picked that out and chambered it beforehand, then it gave him an option as well. Cheryl T said in your original video commentary, you said something about being interesting that the gun was in the dirtbag's left hand. Any particular reason for that? People are used to seeing it in the right hand. Well, only about 10% of the population is left-handed. And so it's just an interesting little factoid. You see a guy, oh, that's interesting. Dirtbag is left-handed. Okay, cool. We don't see that super often. Usually when I'm looking for problems, I will tell you that when I'm paying attention in my world, I'm always looking at someone's right hand first, unless they're wearing their watch on their other hand. If they're wearing their watch on their right hand, then I pay attention to their left side, because left-handed people tend to wear their watch on their right hand, which is kind of weird because I shoot left-handed, but I wear my watch on my left hand because I'm actually right-handed. So I write right-handed, I throw right-handed, I just shoot left-handed. So I'm an oddity. But for most people, when it's interesting, if I'm looking, I look first at the right hand, then at the left, right waist first, left waist second, because most people are right-handed. So that's all I had to say on that, Cheryl. It's a good question. And that tells me that you've watched that one, and that's amazing. Like, man, that one's an old school video. So good for you on that. So can't tell you enough. Biggest thing you can do when you are in a retail space, when you're in a public environment, pay attention to your world and be curious. See what's going on. Just be willing to say, hey, what's going on in this place? How are the people? And I love the idea here of people watching. Rather than looking at stuff, look at people. And you're asking yourself a question: is everybody doing what I expect somebody to do here? Now, paying attention does not mean that you're paranoid. Paying attention does not mean that you are doing the Blues Brothers, dum, 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 dum. You're not doing those kinds of things. Instead, all you're doing is seeing what's going on in your world and asking, is this normal? So you establish a baseline. This is what I expect in this world. So at a grocery store, we expect people to be grocery shopping, checking out, going to their car, coming in, grabbing a cart, not paying attention to me, paying attention to their world, looking at product, those kinds of things. And if I see all that, cool, then those are normal things and I go about my business. But I see somebody paying attention to me. I see somebody skulking, as it were, or, loitering where I wouldn't expect somebody to loiter, especially at the entrance. I see somebody panhandling and being aggressive at that. Then those are times when I go, okay, something's out of whack here. I need to investigate, is really what that means. So pay attention, guys. Attention buys you time, and time buys you options. And I think, to me, if I go, hey, wait, if I'm able to see a gunfight coming far enough away that I can just avoid it completely, man, I win. I totally win. If instead I don't see that coming until I have to and I'm into it, that's like, to me, driving so close to someone's bumper that all I can do is slam on the brakes and hope for the best. I'd rather look past the person in front of me when I'm driving and see what's going on in my world and go, oh, man, 4 cars in front of us. We got to pile up. I got to get on my brakes and get over a lane so that I don't get caught up in that. And again, paying attention buys me time, and time gives me options in order to deal with the problem. So that's our biggest one. Ta-da. Next lesson that we want to talk about here is that compliance is an option. Now, I answered this question today. Somebody on the channel, on the big channel, said that I put a registration link up on the big channel, and they said, well, the way to survive an armed robbery is just to comply. Okay, we're going to talk about the fact that it's not a foolproof option, but it is an option. It doesn't always work, but it can be an option. So always recognize. I just want everybody to see, and I think sometimes that people say, oh, John, you're giving people this false sense, or I've had other YouTubers say, oh, he's just making vigilantes. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I am a self-defender. I carry a firearm to protect myself and my loved ones, and I enforce my own boundaries. And that means that I decide when I am going to defend myself and when I'm going to comply in that being the best choice in order to end the threat to me and mine in my vicinity. And you might say, hey, wait a minute, if I just hand this guy my wallet, he'll run off and the threat is over. And I was able to not get in a gunfight today for the $100 in my wallet. And what it cost me is, going and canceling my credit cards and getting a new driver's license or whatever. Then, okay, fine, man, compliance is absolutely 100% an option. So recognize that you can do that. So let's go to this video, Neil. This is a little cafe. And what we're going to see here is we're going to see our bad guy walking in on the far right-hand side. And I've sped it up again for the sake of time. And you notice him here, he is going to hide when we talk about that attack out of an ambush. He's hiding as a customer. He's looking at the menu and this and that. And when he decides, nah, I'm done with that, he's going to pull a gun here. and decide, hey, this is a robbery, and start robbing everybody. Now, if you notice, we have here on the very far left, when he steps on the counter, a mom and dad and a little one. You can see right here now in this side, see dad in the red cap, mom and the little one, and now what are they going to do? So when he jumps behind the counter, the people behind the counter are not going to do anything about it, even though he's screwing that gun in their ear. He's pointing his gun all around at people and saying, hey, give me all your wallet and stuff. And so now dad's going to get his wallet out, and dad's going to be super sly here and actually take the money out of his wallet and put it back in his pocket because the guy wasn't watching him. He's going to get his wallet out and tell his wife, hey, get your wallet out. Let me have your phone or whatever. Now, notice again, they got a little one. And so dad's really thinking, gosh, should I get my little one the heck out of here? But he puts all the stuff together for him, and we're going to see our bad guy jump the counter, stick the gun in his face. Now watch what happens here. As he jumps the counter, he sticks that gun right in the face of that dad and pins him to the counter with it and threatens him, and then he's going to grab all their stuff and walk off. So in this particular instance, nobody was hurt. Dude's going to walk off with their stuff. They lost their stuff, but okay, fine. They survived having somebody stick a gun in their face simply by complying, all right? Now that said, what is compliance doing? What is the underlying ethos of compliance? It says, I trust my safety right now to a felon. I trust my safety to somebody who thinks so little of my safety that they're willing to stick a gun in my face. They're willing to violate the rules of firearms safety and threaten me with death if I don't comply with them. And that's the person who I'm trusting to keep me safe while this is going on. That to me is suboptimal. That to me is, I think, a gross miscarriage of what I want to do in terms of keeping myself and my family safe. So compliance is an option, but what I would suggest is that you think about, is compliance my best strategy? Stephanie just texted me and reminded me. Tom Givens is he's the owner of Rangemaster, and Rangemaster students have been in 67 defensive encounters. 67 gunfights, and they are 64-0-3 in those gunfights. 64 wins, 0 losses, 3 forfeits, and those 3 forfeits all came for people who were unarmed. They left their gun at home that day, and they were fully compliant and were killed anyways. And so, compliance doesn't always do what you want it to do. Now, Cheryl, could you pop that up again, Neil? I'm sorry, I was answering something, and I didn't see what Cheryl said. Cheryl, she said, whew, if I was mom, I would have shoved that little girl into the counter, done something, right? Get my little one the heck out of danger. And let me tell you, I've got 10 lessons for you tonight that we're going to probably go another 30, 40 minutes to get through, and then we'll talk about it. But, man, there's another 30 lessons if we want to go through them. Papi Morales says, after he steps outside, if I follow and call his attention, when he turns, can I fire? As far as, since I had a gun in my face, which is an imminent threat of death. So, Papi, what I want you to always think is we never think about can I. We always think about must I. Okay? So if I think, can I do this? Can I shoot somebody? We put ourselves at legal risk and at physical risk and at the risk of death. So let me say this. Dude has walked out. You know he has a gun, and he stuck it in your face. And you go, I'm going to have a gunfight with that guy. So now you're going to step outside and have an optional gunfight. Now, I don't think that's smart at all. I think if I go, no, wait a minute, I'm going to hunker down here and just defend where I know I have dominance rather than step outside. And I don't know how good he is with that gun. I do know that he's willing to use it against me. And I don't know if he's any good with it. Now, I know how good I am with it, but am I willing to have a gunfight for my wallet? I always ask people this. If I said, the contents of your wallet right now are forfeit. So you're going to hand me your wallet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and into the next room, and I'm going to set it down on the floor. Now, here's the deal. If you want to go get that wallet, in that room are an unknown number of people of unknown armament and unknown skill level. And you will have to survive and triumph in a gunfight in order to get that. Would you like to have that gunfight? Or would you go, nah, it's just my wallet, man, let it go? In my opinion, it is foolhardy and terrible risk analysis to go have that gunfight. Because at the very least, let's just say your wallet has $500 in it. I mean, I don't know who carries $500 in cash around on them in this day and age, but let's just say you do. And you have $500 and you go, okay, man, that's $500 that I can't afford to lose. And you go and have a gunfight with this guy. Now, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to hire an attorney. Now, you might say, no, this is a totally righteous shoot, and the district attorney is going to love me because it's cool. Really? You chased some guy out into the street? Now he turned and pointed a gun at you, but then you decided to fire. So you had a gun in your hand. You stepped out in the street with a gun in your hand and said, hey, and he turned around at you. Now, could he make the argument that, no, I was fleeing, I had decided to flee, he threatened me with a gun, and so now we have a totally separate gunfight, and he's the aggressor? Well, maybe. And do you need an attorney to go, come on, man, that's prima facie really silly? And do you think that's going to cost you less than that $500? It's going to cost you a ton more than that $500. Yes. Oh, so Caleb LaPlante says, my wife says I'd go into that room for my child, but not my wallet. 1,000% yes, because the calculus is totally different. If I said, hey, I'm going to put your child in that other room, and in order to go get your child and ensure their safety, you have to have a gunfight with an unknown number of people of unknown armament and unknown capability. And otherwise, your child is gone forever. Do you have that? Every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I head in going, okay, here we go, but I'm not going. I'm coming back with my shield or on it. I'm going to come back with my child, or I'm not coming back. Because again, my child is of inestimable value. My little one, the one whom I love, my wife, my kids, my loved ones are of inestimable value. So that the calculus changes drastically. When it's just stuff, it's different. If that guy dragged that little girl out with him, or that child, and said, here, I'm going to kidnap this child as well and run off, then you absolutely go out there and chase him, and you stop that kidnapping in progress at whatever cost it takes. Tom Troy says, after compliance and the guy's still pointing a gun at your face, is it a good time to draw when you have the chance? Not if a guy's still pointing a gun at your face. We call that drawing from the drop. If you draw a gun when somebody has their attention on you and a gun on you, we call that drawing from the drop. It's a great way to get shot. Instead, we're going to talk about waiting your turn. And we're going to talk about that in a little while, about using the opportunity that you have and using purposeful compliance in order to gain an advantage, turn the tables, and launch a counter ambush. We're going to talk about that. So don't get into unnecessary gunfights. Now, again, if there was a human that he'd taken, if there's a person, by all means, chase him down and have that gunfight. When it's just stuff, do the math. It's just stupid. It's a from a financial perspective, terrible idea. And I know there's going to be somebody who says, yeah, but I'm from Texas and we can stop theft in the nighttime. That wasn't a nighttime video, by the way. And you can defend property with deadly force. You better be very careful with that. All it takes is one district attorney who says, no, I'm going to prosecute you anyway. And then you get punished with the process. And you'll still spend thousands and thousands of dollars on attorneys. And I don't want you to do that. Eduardo Sanabria said, in the first clip you showed, was the bad guy walking out of the store when the man drew his weapon? No. So when the guy drew his firearm and decided to engage, his first shot, click, that was his big problem, is he went, click, oh no, I need to chamber this gun. Certainly the guy is a deadly threat in that moment. Click, chambers his gun, bang, bang, bang. Now the guy's starting to retreat. However, in that moment when the action started, he is in fresh pursuit. And as the action started, he was defending against an imminent deadly threat. So he's going to be okay in that instance, specifically because he didn't chase after the guy. Okay, so that one is probably okay. So you see the difference here? We use deadly force as a tool of last resort to defend life. And if we do that, we'll never have legal peril. We start defending property, man, we start having big legal problems. So to answer the earliest question, can I go shoot that guy? I always say there's a 3-pronged test. There is can, should, and must. So when I say, can I shoot that guy? I'm always in legal risk, because I go, well, is it okay or is it not okay? Then I ask, should I shoot that guy? Is this the best course of action? Then I'm in a better spot. But when I ask the question, must I shoot that guy? If I don't shoot that guy, what happens? Well, if I don't shoot that guy, I'm dead. My loved one's dead. An outcome happens that is so heinous that I cannot live with it. Then I shoot him, because then the risk, the cost of being prosecuted is less than the cost of not acting. I always say this. My friend Mark Victor from Attorneys for Freedom, and he's part of Firearms Legal Protection's their attorney cadre. Mark says, look, always ask the question, if I need to shoot somebody, if I have to, am I willing to be prosecuted and go to prison for this? If I'm willing, if I say, yeah, man, I gotta go, even if I end up in prison over this, I'm going to go. Then go ahead, and you'll almost never end up in prison for doing that. But if you go, well, I mean, gosh, man, I'd rather get a new wallet than go to prison, then don't shoot a guy. Simple as that. Okay. All right. Whew, that one got belabored a little bit. Let's move on to our next one, because I want to show you as well that in our next one, compliance is an option. So I want you to know that compliance is an option, but it's not a foolproof solution. Okay. And let me back up again. I'm not saying, but don't comply, because it doesn't always work. You decide. See, when you have the attitude and the skills and the plan, when you're properly armed, when you understand, hey, wait a minute, I know what my skill set is. I know how fast I can draw and get a gun into the fight. I know my marksmanship standards, so I know what I can accomplish and what I can't. and I know what I can do with this tool. Then you choose, is the best answer for me here to comply or not to comply? Otherwise, you don't have a choice, right? Then you go, well, I don't have any skills, so I just have to comply no matter what and hope that he is kind to me on some level. I don't think that's a good strategy, but some people do. So again, we're thinking about that. And compliance, though, is an option. It's a strategy, but it's not a foolproof solution. So here we're watching a Metro PCS robbery. And you're going to see here, you can see two employees. We see one employee on the left and then another at the bottom. You see this armed robber walk in. Now, unfortunately, I was a doofus. This is an older one, and you can see the one employee is kind of hiding behind the corporate logo. And what you can see here is he is going to check out the door and go, hey, man, what's up? And she's like, hey, what do you need? And he's like, give me the money out of the till. Okay, fine, I will. And then he smacks her in the face with the gun hard and broke her nose and broke her orbital bone. And then they run away. And when he did that, he actually shot the gun negligently as well. So the gunshot went off, and she has a broken nose and a broken orbital bone, a broken eye bone, while this guy goes. Now, look, some person tried to come in and go, oh, no, never mind. There's a guy robbing the joint. So he walks off. Now, keep watching, though, because it gets better. You see another guy walk in, and a robber walk out, and he doesn't even notice him. Oh, hey, what's up? Remember what I said earlier about paying attention in your world? So those ladies were fully compliant, but one of them had a gunshot sent her way. The second one had a broken nose and a broken eyeball socket, okay? And again, she's going, he's like, give me the money. Okay, click, click, bang. And she, he hits her right in the face with the gun. So just complying doesn't necessarily give you any kind of additional safety. Also, again, let me recognize that I'm a range master, master firearms instructor, certified, all those things. And of all of Tom's students, not just his instructors, but every student he's taught, 67 gunfights to the last counting that he's done, 64-0-3, 64 wins, 0 losses, 3 forfeits. And those 3 forfeits were people who left their gun at home and were complying and were killed anyways. So given that the ones who actually were armed are 64-0, and I don't know how many of those complied, but that's still a bad number. So compliance, not a bad thing. I'm not telling you not to comply. I'm telling you it is not a foolproof solution. But if you are going to resist, here is our next lesson. If you're going to choose to resist, you have to wait your turn. You must be willing to wait until it's your turn to launch a counter ambush. And here's why. What happens is that the bad guy gets to set the timing of the attack. The bad guy gets to decide, hey, I am going to launch my attack at this time. And so you're always in an initiative deficit as a self-defender. So he's got a gun in your face, give me your wallet, whatever. He's looking around for other people. And you got to say, okay, wait my turn. Now, I will tell you, I have had many emails, many Facebook messages from fans of the channel who said that I heard you, man. I was in an armed robbery and I heard you in my head. Wait your turn, wait your turn, wait your turn. And then when my turn came, I took it and was able to win my gunfight. And I hear that again and again. So take this one to heart, is that you use compliance. What we're going to see in this particular video is you're going to see the guy hold up his hands. Hey, man, no problem, whatever you want. He's going to use that compliance to get the guy to look away from him. So when somebody asked earlier, if a guy's got a gun in your face, can I draw a gun anyways and gunfight him? What you want him to do is look away from you. And how do you know it's your turn? Well, you know it's your turn when you can reliably get your gun out and get a shot on him before he can get a shot on you. How fast is that? Depends on how fast your draw to first shot is. How fast is your draw to first shot? Well, I can't tell you that. Only you can know that. I can tell you that we have 3 standards at active self-protection. The number one is what we call the national standard of a concealed carrier, which is to get a gun out from concealment and get a shot on an 8-inch circle in under 2.0 seconds at 7 yards. So if I have a bad guy that's 7 yards away from me, I can hit the vital zone, which is about an 8-inch circle like this, in under 2.0 seconds from my stimulus, from my go signal. And if you can do that, then you're perfectly competent as a concealed carrier. The professional standard is to do that same thing in under 1.5 seconds to be able to get that hit in a half second faster. And the expert standard is under 1.0 seconds. I can tell you that. I work this draw to first shot as my staple primary dry fire work, and I do that multiple times a week for this reason. And I strive to be under that 1.0. Neil, the CMO here at Active Self Protection, he's faster than I am with a gun because he sold his soul to the devil for it or something. But he can pull 0.8s on the reg. I've seen him pull 0.7s. And I'm more of a 9.5, 9.6 guy on the regular on live fire. But If you know that, so here's the thing. If somebody has a 2.0 draw to first shot, their turn comes when the bad guy turns his back. If you can see his shoulder and he turns, you can see the back of his shoulder at all, then he can't get turned away from you, look back at you, see that you're trying to shoot him, and shoot you in less than 2 seconds. If you have a 1.5 second draw to first shot, you don't need him to turn his whole body. You just need to turn his head and see his ear. He will turn his head, and if he turns his head and sees his ear, he can be holding a gun on you and saying, give me your wallet, look like this, look back, oh, I got to shoot you, and he can't do that faster than 1.5 seconds by human performance standards. So if you say, show me your, you've got a 1.5 draw to first shot, and you go, show me your ear, bro. Show me your ear, that's my go signal. Now, if you've got a 1.0 draw to first shot, all he has to do is turn his nose at all. So if he's looking right here, all he has to do is turn his nose and then turn back. So that's as little as you need. Say, hey, man, show me, give me your wallet, whatever. What's over here? Oh, geez, bang. He can't go this, that, back to you. Oh, geez, bang, and shoot you under 1.0 second if he's not expecting the shot. So how fast are you? I'm not telling you how fast you have to be. I'm telling you that the speed that you can do cold on demand, not when you've all warmed up, cold on demand, then you know what your go signal is. So let's watch this video about waiting our turn. What we're going to see here is our victim just walks in right now, and he's got himself a six-pack because he likes to party. And now our bad guy walks in from the same door. You see him waving a gun around. Now watch what our good guy here in the hat is doing. He sees the guy, and he's going to put his beer down, and he's going to go, okay, man, whatever. See that compliance? He's going to wait his turn. Now, dude's not going to pay attention to him, and as soon as our good guy, you can see him start to cheat his draw. When he sees the guy isn't looking at him, he draws his firearm then and gets on that guy and shoots him multiple times. Guy falls over, our good guy's able to take his firearm away. So what do we see here? He complied and used compliance as a tool in order to gain himself the advantage. So what he did is he waited until the bad guy was looking away from him in order to regain the initiative. When the bad guy has a gun on you and has his eyes on you, it's the bad guy's initiative. He is in charge of what happens next. When he looks away, you can regain the initiative and launch a counter ambush. And so you might say, but John, I'm not carrying a gun. Okay, then maybe your advantage is I'm looking for that door. I'm going to comply in such a way that when he turns away from me, I'm gone. I'm going to be running out that door before he can even say boo. And I'm going to be in the next county before he is able to get a shot on me. Okay, fine. That might be the solution that you have. Now, of course, if you're a parent with a child, then running away isn't necessarily an option. But for those of us here, a lot of or many, I would even say most of our fans at Active Self-Protection are the kind of self-defender that carry a firearm and or an OC spray or something like that. When can I use that tool? Well, you got to wait your turn. So being patient when you see that coming. So remember, we tie in with our first lesson that attention buys you time. Time buys you options. So if I'm in this liquor store and I go, oh, I see that guy across the room, he's starting to shake people down with a gun. Now I can decide he's not paying attention to me right now. Maybe I do get my gun out and go to work on him. Or I go, nope, I'm going to nope out of here. Or I say, hey, I'm going to draw my firearm quietly and get to a better place and launch a counter ambush. Eduardo Sanabria asks, are the follow-up shots necessary? Yes, when we do our evidence-based pistol skills, lessons learned from analyzing 25,000 gunfights. Absolutely. Follow-up shots are very often necessary, regardless of handgun caliber. So I don't care if you carry a 38, a 380, a 357, a 9mm, a 40 cal, 44, 45. I don't care. Whatever handgun you have, it does about the same thing in terminal ballistics. In terms of its effect on a human being under adrenaline, they're all relatively the same. So one shot can stop a bad guy, but follow-up shots are very often necessary. So when we talk about the most important skills to win a gunfight, getting the gun out quickly, number one skill. Getting that first shot on target, absolutely critical number one skill. Because if I get the first shot in him, then I get a little bit of time as he's thinking about, oh, no, I've been shot. Then I can think through again, bang, let me see my front sight again, bang, and hit him a second time. You don't have all day, but you have about a half a second. You don't have to have rocket fast splits if your first shot hits an anatomically significant area. If you wing him with the first shot, that didn't do nothing. You shoot somebody in the leg, shoot them in the guts, they'll keep doing whatever it was they were doing. If instead you put that first shot in an anatomically significant spot, those are the fight stoppers, okay? So wait your turn, everyone. Wait your turn. Make sure that you are not overextending and launching a counter ambush from behind the initiative curve. Instead, hey, what's my turn here? Now that might be, again, when I'm waiting my turn, hey man, I don't want any problems. We saw a good guy do that. Okay, man, whatever you want. This gesture right here, this hands up, palms out gesture. Hey man, I don't want any problems, bro. Whatever you want, I'm going to give you. Fine. Now in your head, you're saying, look away from me, bro. Now this also, the funny part is if I'm sitting back here just a little bit and I'm here, hey man, I don't want any problems, whatever. Now you notice I'm not way up here. I'm not going, okay, man, whatever you want. I'm going, hey bro, whatever you want, that's fine. I don't have any problems. You know what this also is? It's a great place to draw from. It's a great place to draw a firearm and be ready to rock. So understanding that waiting your turn, incredibly important. Okay. We are halfway done with our lessons, but we have also hit the 50-minute mark, and everybody can only gather and learn that which their tushy and their bladder can handle. So here's what I want you to do. It's 5:51 on my clock. At 6:01, or 1 minute past the hour, we will come back and carry on. We have 5 more lessons, but I want you to get up, stretch out. I want you to get yourself something to drink, go to the bathroom if you need to, and I'll meet you right back here in 10 minutes. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Here we go. We are going to, Neil, why don't you pull me full screen so then that way we can go from there. I know we had a number of comments at the break that I want to answer some of them because there were a couple of really good ones. So in particular, there was Jeff Holt. Okay, so let's go to the first one, Tim Hill first, because that one, Neil, I think doesn't make context for that other one. So Tim Hill says, you think the simple act of running up and pulling a gun in the act of a robbery makes drawing and putting rounds in the bad guy okay? Like, even if he doesn't say, I'll kill you or something similar. Tim, the very fact that he's threatening you and wants your stuff and shows deadly force is the equivalent of saying, I'll kill you. That is an implicit threat of death. The fact that he pulls a gun during a robbery. So he says, give me your stuff, and then pulls a gun. That is absolutely a threat without using the words, or I will kill you. So yes, absolutely. A guy shows a gun at you and says, give me your stuff, give it up or whatever. That is absolutely an active deadly threat. And he is absolutely saying, or I will kill you as part of that. And so does that run, does that justify using deadly force to stop? Yes, legally speaking, you can use deadly force to stop imminent great bodily harm or death to yourself or to another person. And so that's that legal threshold. That also happens to be the moral threshold. You can use the reasonable amount of force that is required to stop a threat. And a deadly threat, and certainly somebody pointing a gun at you represents a deadly threat to you. Otherwise, they wouldn't point a gun at you. Then you have the right to use deadly force. So when the next question asks, isn't that excessive? No, it's not excessive. And it doesn't matter if it's a gun in his hand or a knife in his hand, as long as, again, he meets the criteria. So we're going to have to do a class on the legal use of force, and I am going to do that in the months ahead. We're going to do a class on the principles of legal and moral use of force. But the overarching principle is reasonableness, and he has to meet the standards of ability to do you harm, opportunity to do you great bodily harm, and you are in jeopardy, or he has the intent to do you great bodily harm. Those are the ones that you have available to you. So yes, absolutely. Then Jeff says, John, if you come to the fight as a third party and the bad guy has his gun on the clerk, they're not paying attention to me. If I shoot, does the clerk ever get hit by the bad guy? Jeff, I've never seen that actually happen. I think that it could. I think that, I've seen negligent discharges happen because of what we call fibs to the fudge I'm being shot at factor. But I have actually never seen a third party shoot a bad guy and then that bad guy turn and shoot as a reaction to that or whatever. I've actually never seen that happen. I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's rare enough that I've never seen it. So I hope that answers your question. And Johnny Diaz said, John, you mentioned follow-up shots. Is there an average amount that you've seen? Man, really hard to say. We're actually in the midst right now of doing some statistical analysis of videos on the channel. A lot of gunfights require 0 shots, just the presence of the gun. Good guy pulls a gun, bad guy goes, and runs off to hide. Happens all the time. So I say anywhere from 0 to I've seen as many as 15 or 16 shots in a gunfight. So what's kind of the bell curve? I don't know what the mean and the median is going to be on that. My gut tells me if the gun is fired, I tend to see 5 to 9. Is pretty typical, but that's somewhat limited by the number of rounds in the gun too. So that's why I recommend carrying a pretty high one. The practical tactical minimalist said, John, you have dispelled the 3 rounds, 3 yards, 3 seconds anecdote several times. Could you please expand on what you've seen in the data you've gathered? Yes. So I hear that all the time. The average gunfight, John, is 3 yards, 3 rounds, and 3 seconds. So I've never seen that actually backed up by any authority that says, and here's the data set to prove that. I can tell you that in private citizen gunfights, I just don't see that. I see the actual shooting starts somewhere between 3 and 7 yards is where it goes down. Inside a car length is where the shooting starts. It tends to open up from there. Bad guys that are getting shot at tend to not like that, and they don't close the distance. They never close the distance. One time I've seen a bad guy being shot at and hit closing the distance. And he died in that fight too. There's a clue. But so opening up, I've seen final shots anywhere as much as 15 to even 20 yards happen. I see that how long does it last? I always say that a gunfight is really 5 seconds or less is how long your civilian gunfight goes. Anywhere from a quick second of bang and he's down I don't see actual gunfights. Once the gun comes out and the noisemakers start, I don't see gunfights last more than about 5 seconds. And so it's one of the reasons that I think reloads are so rare, because they happen so fast. If you think about that, I draw the gun and I go bang. Okay, fine. Even if I'm shooting fast, let's say I have an 11 round gun. I've got a capacity limited, 10 plus 1 in the chamber because I live in California or something. And so those 11 shots from first to last, I have basically 1 round and 10 splits. And if those 10 splits are 0.3 seconds, which is moderately fast for an untrained person, then what I have from first shot to last shot, 3 seconds long. Now, if I go, oh, now it's time to reload, ain't nobody reloading in 2 seconds under stress from concealment. That's just not going to happen. It's all but the highest end. Yes, a competitive shooter out of a competition rig can reload in a second or less. Absolutely. I've seen guys do it. But from a concealment, reload, those kinds of things, you're talking 2.5 seconds or more. It's one of the reasons they never show up. So what I see on average, gunfights start somewhere between 3 and 7 yards. Shots fired are somewhere on the order of from 0 to 15. And average time is 5 seconds or less is really where it goes. But 3, 3, and 3, that's so I think that's used to justify mediocrity is what it is. Well, I won't really need to aim because my gunfight's going to be at 3 yards. And I won't need to be fast because I have 3 seconds to fire 3 shots. Well, I see plenty of people that show up to our classes that can't get 1 shot off in 3 seconds. And so if you needed to get off 3 in 3 seconds and actually hit something, then you'd be in real trouble. So I hope that answers the question. Anybody got some more? Chris, wine review. Yes, Chris is a friend. If someone has a gun on you and you're able to gain control of his weapon, is it considered unarmed in the ensuing scramble and fight over the gun? You know, this is, Chris, a really interesting one, and one that I haven't seen adjudicated all the way through. I haven't seen somebody in the heat of the moment. So in other words, if I go, okay, I take this gun away from somebody, and now what? So I think that, is it reasonable in the moment? This guy's just had a deadly, just been pointing a gun at me. I take that gun away from him and immediately use it on him. Am I going to be seen as unreasonable? Probably not. I think in that moment to say, he's a deadly threat, I take the weapon, bang, and use it, you're probably okay. Now, it changes very quickly, though. If I say, boom, I take his gun away from him, and I go, get on the ground, and he runs away, and I shoot him in the back with his gun, that's probably going to be seen as unreasonable, depending on where and how long that is. If I say, I take his gun away from him, I punch him in the face, and he goes, oh, shoot, man, I don't want to fight, and I shoot him, then I'm probably going to be seen as unreasonable. But if it's in hot pursuit in that immediate moment of fighting over the gun and I use it, quickly thereafter, I'm probably going to be seen as reasonable in that light. Bravo for this animal. Is it best to look your gun to the holster after a defensive counter or to do it without looking, keeping your eyes in the game? If you do not have the time to look your gun into the holster because there could considerably be a threat in the area, do not put your gun away. Simple as that. In a defensive encounter, you're carrying a concealed firearm. You're not like a police officer who's got an offset holster with a big bucket to put his gun into because he's carrying a full-size gun with a light on it and a comp and a red dot. So he's got this big bucket sitting in there to put in there. and you don't have that. You have a much smaller holster for your concealed carry gun. It's carried inside the waistband almost always, so it's much harder to put away. So if you don't have time to look the gun into the holster, which only takes about a second, keep the gun in hand. And if you go, well, wait a minute, what happens if the police show up? If the police show up and you didn't have time to put the gun away, lay it on the ground and put your hands up. It's that simple. Okay, hope that answers your question. Let us move on. We've got some more lessons today. We took up 10 minutes, which means I'm going to have to hurry. All right, next one that we want to talk about here in an armed robbery, multiple attackers, super common. Okay, multiple attackers are about a third of all encounters that I film on the channel, that I narrate for the channel, involve multiple attackers. Multiple attackers are not uncommon in any capacity whatsoever. And so you better be prepared for them. So I know when somebody says, hey, John, 3 shots, 3 yards, 3 seconds, they're thinking they're going to face a single attacker. And so their little J-frame 5-shot revolver is going to be enough. Number one, most people couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a J-frame revolver. Apologies to barns, especially if the barn is not stationary. Number two, maybe if that first bad guy, you put 3 rounds at him, but now you've got 2 to deal with however many more you've got. And I always want to have at least 3 servings of bad guy on me. So that to me is a minimum of 9 rounds, 12 if I can get it, because that includes me being sloppy or under adrenaline, not being as accurate as I want to be. So let's look at this multiple attackers one. Multiple attackers, not uncommon at all. So this is a particular one out of Venezuela, and we can see that this is a sidewalk cafe. Watch how quick these guys show up. We got 2 attackers coming in here and picking phones and all that stuff, but thankfully our good guy here is armed himself. Bang, bang, bang. And they drive both those bad guys off really quickly. Like I say, about a third of all attacks that I narrate on the channel involve multiple attackers. Now this guy has a partner in the fight too, which is kind of cool. Don't know exactly where he came from. But expecting there to be only one bad guy is a fallacy as well. And so there's that idea that says, well, how many rounds do I need? Now, I will say this, because of the preponderance of reloads, I think that I would recommend, and what I do is I carry the largest capacity gun that I can reasonably conceal, because whatever's in that gun is what you're going to fight with, period, and end of subject. You are not going to see people dropping and getting New York reloads going on and those things. And everybody either expects their gunfight to be them being the aggressor and shooting a guy once, and that guy goes down like a ton of bricks and it's over, or they expect to be John Wick and they expect to have a running gun battle involving 9 guns and disarming 6 ninja and taking their guns and those things. Neither of those are really how reality goes, but multiple attackers are pretty common. The thing in the multiple attackers is that they use their advantage to overwhelm their numerical advantage, and they tend to scatter when their force advantage evaporates. So if you can put shots on 1 or 2 of them, you're probably pretty far in the game. I very seldom see a good guy put shots on more than 2 bad guys before the rest have scattered off like cockroaches. I do see it very occasionally, but usually when the bad guys are stuck somewhere. So if they're in the back room of a convenience store, or if they are in a car or something like that, that's where I've seen that, where they can't get out of the way quickly. But usually I can get on with 1 or 2, and 2 is about the most, okay? All right, before we go, let's see, the truth be, what are some of the biggest factors that criminals use in targeting victims for armed robberies? Really, it's those transitional spaces. It's seeing, do I have valuables available? Can I ambush appropriately and overwhelm to be able to get what I want? And can I get away quickly? Those are the 3 things. So a lot of times it's a failure to pay attention, like we saw in number 1. It is having valuables that are available and visible and looking like food. You're on your phone, you're in a spot that they can isolate you and ambush you and get where you can't hurt them and they get the heck away. That's pretty common. All right, Neil said he wanted to do some housekeeping. Is that correct? Or is that Steph that wanted to do some housekeeping?
My guess is that was Steph that wanted to do housekeeping, but clearly I carry the broom here. So,
well, clean house, bro.
Hey, man, I just wanted to say to everybody, great questions and a great conversation. SVG has a great one that I'm going to hold till the next break or at the end here, and we'll talk about it. I guess I don't know if we're taking another break here, John, are we? We're just going.
No, this is our last hour, so we're going to bang through these last 4 pretty quick. We'll have some time for some discussions.
Yeah, and so I'm going to do that. So I'll have that up there at the end, SVG, because I think that's a great question and something that we'll want to explore a little bit. As far as housekeeping goes, next month's version of this is going to be based on defending the defenseless and how to defend those in your life and in your circle that cannot defend themselves. And there's going to be a guest speaker that I think is a pretty cool person that's going to come do this because she's used to defending a defenseless person at our house all the time. So if you know much about us, if you know much about the Widener family, we do have a special needs son, and that comes with its own challenges. It's not unique just to us. There's tons of families that have other challenges and that kind of thing as well. Could be, an elderly parent or somebody coming home from surgery or a million different things that could make somebody defenseless. But tune in for next month's deal. I'll put the link up here in just a minute along the bottom so you can see. But go to activeselfprotection.com, hit training. The link is already live and ready to go. And forgive me, Steph, I don't have the date that we talked about today sitting right here in front of me in all of this mess that I've got. But again, great questions from everybody. I'm really enjoying this thing. Unfortunately, I'm afraid we're going to go a little long here. John's going to buzz through these things, but we may go a little bit long. If you do have to bail out, we get it. We understand. It's just, when you have good questions that really need to be talked about, I really like to put them up there. So trying to keep us going in that direction. The link will be live for a few days after this stuff. So you can come back and watch the end if somebody has to bail out. We understand.
We were going to try not to, so let's get after the next one, right? Okay. So
all right, I'm out of here.
I'm going to try to leave some time for questions at the end as well. So, and respect everyone's time. I'm going to try to get done by 7. So our next key to surviving an armed robbery is to use concealment if you can to gain an advantage. Now, oftentimes that's going to come if you're able to counter ambush from a place of concealment. In other words, bad guys looking down, and robbing somebody else or the cashier. You're not the cashier. You're behind some kind of Doritos rack or whatever where he can't see you, and you get your gun out and you go to work on him. Now, I know there's going to be some discussion here. People are going to say, but John, shouldn't I use cover instead of concealment? What we actually see is concealment works just as well as cover in these kinds of engagements, because what bad guys can't see, they won't shoot at. Cover and its focus on cover is a military thing, because you're talking about squad-based warfare and rifle fire. Pretty significant issue. And the fact that in military standard operating procedures and rules of engagement, they accept a certain number of civilian casualties and of collateral damage. We don't. And so concealment works just as well as cover. So let's watch this one. What we see here is a robbery out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And what we're going to see, the robber come in from the top here, and you're going to see him grab a victim and say, hey, man, I'm announcing a robbery, and watch him bring the guy to the counter because he wants to rob the clerk too. But what he doesn't know is that this guy happens to be an off-duty cop. So you're going to see him draw his gun and go to work on this guy, bang, 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 and watch him go around the other side of this little chip rack and get after the guy who couldn't see him there either. And that's going to put the fatal shots on the guy. We actually have another angle of it here. Our officer is just chilling, trying to buy himself a Monster or whatever. Guy's like, hey, man, come with me. Okay, cool, man, whatever. I don't want to cause problems. So watch him get his gun out, go to work, bang, bang, and then immediately hook around the Doritos rack. Now, has to clear a malfunction because, it's Brazil, it's a tourist, right? But watch him now use that concealment to stay where the bad guy couldn't see him until he could put shots on the bad guy. So it's using that concealment, if you have the ability to do so, is an important factor. And if you can, now you notice here, he's going to have to start talking to people and saying, hey, you go over here, get out of there, do this thing, whatever, and figure that stuff out is important. And we're just going to watch him continue to use the cover, use the other side, go to a different spot of cover. And I think that of concealment, in reality, not cover, you're going to see him do that on the reg. So if you can get to a spot of concealment, get even, like I say, doesn't even have to be cover, behind the chip rack or behind the hot dog roller or whatever. If the bad guy can't see you, he generally won't shoot you. And generally speaking, that gives you a pretty significant advantage. And even if, I'm here up is what's visible on me, and I drive my gun up and I start shooting, and he's only got this little target because he may know I have this big target here, but he won't shoot through stuff to get it. He'll aim for the smaller target, which gives me more of a chance to not get shot. So use that concealment. It is a huge advantage. Next one, if you're not armed and the bad guy is armed, the key that we see on again and again, now I'm going to have to blow through this one, guys, is the 5Ds plus 1. People ask me about the 5Ds plus 1 all the time. And as a martial artist, people are like, oh, well, what style does that come from? It doesn't. It comes from me watching real disarms on camera and how real people that are not highly trained martial artists disarm actual bad guys. And what I see happen, we call it the 5Ds plus 1. The plus 1 is controlling the distance. If you don't control the distance, nothing else works. And I get it. Somebody's like, well, why don't you just call it the 6Ds, John? Well, because we want that plus 1 to be so of its own that you recognize. I have to start my counter ambush from a distance that I can do the rest of these, and that is to deflect. And so first we start with deflecting the tool and getting it where it won't hurt us. So if he's got a gun, I have to deflect that gun, that if it goes off, the bullet goes past me instead of in me. Then I dominate the tool, the hand with the tool, the arm with the tool, the person with the tool, in that order. Don't try to dominate the person with the tool and leave the tool in orbit so the bad guy can turn around with that gun and get you, okay? Pretty significant, all right? 5Ds plus 1. So once I've dominated, then I have to distract. Otherwise, I'm in a hand fight for strength with what usually is a bigger, stronger, faster, younger opponent. So instead, what I want you to do is learn to distract. And how do we distract bad guys? Usually by hurting him and breaking things on him. And that means doing damage to him and counter-attacking is what that means. Then I disarm. I take away that gun. Usually then what that means is once I've distracted him, then his focus on keeping the tool, because, of course, he's got the holdiani part of the knife or the gun, and I've got the ali part. If I distract him, though, then that will give me the opportunity to disarm. And then I disable. And in disable, we mean stop him from hurting me further. So those are the 5Ds plus 1. 1 is cover the distance. Make sure you control the distance. Whoever controls the distance controls the damage. Then we deflect, dominate, distract, disarm, and disable. If you do them in that order, this is what we see happen. And you could combine them. So I see sometimes where I see people that they dominate and distract at the same time. Okay, fine. Then that gets them a disarm very, very quickly. But trying to skip steps generally doesn't work very well, okay, when you're unarmed. And it leads to people having problems. When I see people get stuck, they try to dominate. They deflect okay, but then they try to dominate and the bad guy isn't distracted. And they don't get the dominance they want. And because the bad guy isn't dominated and distracted, he brings the gun back in the fight and we get the deflect to go away. He works it back up this way and shoots us. So I don't want that to happen to you. Let's watch it happen in this particular one. Here's an interesting one. You're going to see a robber come in and rob this Chinese restaurant. And you're going to see him stick a gun in the owner's face. And she flinches and he's like, yo, give me the stuff. She's pretty angry about it. Of course, now she's just going to wait her turn, though. And this is fairly interesting. And as the guy sticks a gun in her face, she just reaches out and grabs it, and now it's on. So now they're fighting because notice she's dominated the tool, deflected it away from her, but she can't get away from him until the other guy shows up with a meat cleaver, and that distracts him. Oh, don't want to get hit with the meat cleaver. So she can disarm him, and then they get him to go away. Now, she thought it was a fake gun, press the trigger, and oh, it wasn't a fake gun. So let's not play around with those games. I think a lot of times people think it's a fake gun when it's not a fake gun. Never assume it's a fake gun. Somebody points a gun at you, unless you know, like you're looking down the barrel and you're like, dude, that's a Crossman air gun. Like, you moron, you're pointing a BB gun at me. Then otherwise, guys, man, you've got to always assume it's real. So we saw there, this was not a highly trained martial artist. She wasn't like a Kung Fu master. She just reached out and grabbed a hold of that gun. Now I'm going to fight him for that gun. So we had the deflect. She controlled the distance to get her hand on the gun. Had the deflect, kept it away from her, dominated the gun, wasn't able to dominate anything else. Now she's in a strength fight until her husband shows up with the meat cleaver and distracts. As soon as the meat cleaver distracts, the dude goes, whoa, and let's go with the gun so he can get out of there. And that is where the disable comes from. He is not able to hurt anymore because she has the gun, and he runs off and is out of contact. And so those 5Ds+1 are the key. Now, are you going to think in the middle of a grapple fight for a gun? I got what position am I in here? Am I in the distract? Am I in the disable? Am I in the disarm? No, you're not going to, which is why you work on it in training. That's why you get on the mat and go, hey, wait a minute, let's work through this particular part. We're going to start with it here, and then we're going to see what we can do to get the rest of this done, or those kinds of things. You work with a training partner, work with live resistance and those kinds of things. You'll find out what works pretty well. Okay. Number 13, our next one, guys, and I got to be real with you on this. Nothing is guaranteed. Okay. Whether you comply or whether you fight, you might lose an armed robbery. And what we see all the time, you know, when we talk about Tom Gibbons and Rangemaster, his 3 forfeits, those people did not get up that day thinking it was going to be their last day. And yet they had their last day. In this particular one, what we're going to see is we're going to see somebody fight back and unfortunately lose. So, Neil, why don't we go ahead with this one? So we're going to see an armed robbery take place. See the guy put that guy down on the ground who's an armed robber. And now we see this dude who's just standing there watching like, whoa, what's going on, man? While he's robbing the clerk. I can't tell you enough. If you're not in the midst of getting better and making this, you know, and solving the problem, get the heck out of the danger zone. This dude's just sitting around. So a robber comes back to the clerk, and now he's sitting in the back with the clerk. Now, I'm not sure what's going to go on that makes the clerk decide that he's going to try to disarm this guy. Now, finally, our bystander is going to wander his way out, and that's smart. But watch our clerk at this point there's going to be something that says it's go time. And when he decides to go, now the fight is on. So he's going to try to take the gun away from the guy, but notice the guy gets the gun back. So they're fighting over it here, and our bad guy's able to defeat the dominance and get the gun back. And when he does, he gets up and shoots the guy in the head. And then he runs off with all the stuff. So our victim there ended up dying. So there are no guarantees. I'm not telling you if you try the 5Ds+1 and you try them that you might not find a bad guy who finds the right answer and ends up shooting you in the face. There are no guarantees, okay? I can tell you what works and what tends to work, what we see statistically and anecdotally work better against some than others, but I cannot make you promises that what I tell you, if you do this, you will win, because stuff like this happens. And so there's 2 answers there. We always say practice spiritual fitness, right? Spiritual fitness means you've said everything you need to say to your loved ones. You've solved all the conflicts you can. They know that you love them. You've said you're sorry for things you need to say sorry for, and that you and Jesus have a strong relationship because you'll need it in that day. All right, the truth. Ask, what defensive disarm methods do you find the best methods, particularly for private citizens? I have yet to see a disarm that looked like a particular martial arts style. So when somebody goes, oh, so we do this side or whatever. In terms of technique, I just never see real kind of martial artsy, kung fu-y technique, come through and do this stuff. And I got great respect for martial arts, right? I've got 14 years of martial arts study and a second degree black belt in a more traditional martial art form. Well, it's not traditional. It's a derivative of tradition that we've given up the traditions. Anyways, too much time to say. But when I see happen is simple, fast, and full throttle is what really works in the end of things. So anything that's flourishy or requires multiple steps or does things that are, artsy fartsy, not my favorite. Also things that require a high amount of strength or require you to have a really big grip pressure or something like that. Not a huge fan of, because not everybody can do them. What a 6'3", 260-pound brick house strong man can do, 110-pound woman may not be able to do. But if she knows simple, fast, and full throttle and can work through the 5 Ds of deflect, dominate, distract, disarm, disable, she might be able to get it, as we saw the woman who was in the grocery or in the restaurant get that disarm. So those ones do actually work, and I do see those kind of regularly. But size matters, strength matters, and who you are matters. So when you say what's the best martial arts system for disarms, I don't think there is one, quite frankly. I don't know every martial art, and I don't know every single person's, if you go, oh, well, my teacher does it this way, and so that's the best art. Okay, fine. I think it's more about getting on the mat, practicing, going simple, fast, and full throttle is the way to go. All right. There's no panacea here, guys. No promises. All right. Final lesson that I have for you. The final lesson that I want us to really think about in surviving an armed robbery. And this one's critically important. If you only listen to a couple lessons, listen to the one about paying attention, listen to the one about waiting your turn, and listen to this one. Never, ever, ever, ever chase fleeing felons. Period. Full stop. Let me say it again. Never, ever, ever, ever chase fleeing felons. Period. Full stop. The reason is you put yourself at grave physical peril to do that for stuff. Again, we're not talking about a kidnapping in progress. We're not talking about somebody who is a threat to your loved ones. Okay, those are active threats that are existing in our space. But when that, we get an armed robber who runs off and they've taken our stuff and we chase them, we put ourselves at additional personal, physical, mortal peril when we do so. Number two, we can put ourselves in a legal peril as well. And of course, we want to win the fight for the rest of our lives. I don't want to go to prison because I was pissed off at some guy who stole my wallet and I wanted him to pay for that. Okay. We can always protect, but when we try to punish, now we got problems. So when we chase fleeing felons, we run into problems like this. So Neil, let's go to this one. Now, what I want you to pay attention to, this is an armed robbery in progress. Watch the green door. So watch our armed robber. He's going to get shot from off camera. Bang. And he's going to run off. His partner's going to run off. Now, our good guy's going to come on screen and chase him, but watch the green door. Watch the bottom of the green door. Chases him outside. Bang. There was another guy sitting right outside who blew his brains out. And I was going to say, back it up a little bit again, Neil, and you can watch him go out the door. And you can see him right there, get shot in the doorway. So he decided he was going to chase that fleeing felon, puts the cart down there, looks outside, bang. And a lucky shot, a third accomplice. And I see that. I see bad guys that when they chase them out into the road, they end up with significant mortal peril. And of course you go, oh man, that's a terrible outcome. What I would far rather see you do is you've already won a gunfight against this guy. And so consolidate the dominance you have in the space you're in. You've already established you have full control over the space. You have absolutely dominated the space that you're in. You've drawn your firearm, gone to work, won a gunfight against these guys, driven them off. Great. Let them go. And you go, yeah, but are the cops going to get him? Man, you just shot that guy. Trust me, he's going to show up at the hospital, or the cops are going to find him, or he's going to crawl under a rock and die, okay? And let him go, because bad stuff like this happens. And somebody goes, yeah, but what if he comes back because he wants it? Well, you've already won one gunfight against him. And so if you hunker down in a good defensive position and he decides to come back, he has to come back through that door. And so you have every advantage in that instance, because now he has to come through what's known as the fatal funnel instead of you going through the fatal funnel. So don't chase fleeing felons, period, full stop. Nothing but bad things happen. I see people that chase fleeing felons that end up shooting shots and winging shots down the neighborhood, and those bullets all come to rust somewhere. I've seen people prosecuted for that because they've hurt innocent bystanders. I've seen people, guy jumps in their car and steals it. They see him stealing it. Dude's driving off and they shoot him and wound him and they get charged with aggravated assault. I've seen that happen in some places, depending on the jurisdiction, because again, you can't articulate a reasonable deadly threat in that vicinity. So don't do it if at all possible, friends. All right, one last thing for you. My little bit of housekeeping is upcoming training opportunities here with us at Active Self-Protection. First and foremost, I want you to put in your calendar, please come join us September 25th to 27th in Manhattan, Kansas for our national conference. It is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It is 3 days of training, all to benefit the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp. The Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp is near and dear to my heart. They give abused and abandoned foster teens a chance at life. They teach them how to live. They give them hope. They teach them life skills. And they give them the ability to get out of the cycle of foster care. They say that about 40% of kids that age out of the foster system on their 18th birthday are homeless. If they've been in the foster system, they are about 8 times more likely to end up in substance abuse, about 8 times more likely to experience homelessness. They're like 12 times less likely to graduate high school or graduate college rather. And so Mike and Lisa Irvin do this incredible work with abused and abandoned foster teens to give them hope and put them on the right path. And they have excellent results at helping those kids avoid those pitfalls. So you make a donation to the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp. You get to come to the Ask National Conference. We don't keep a penny of it. It's all a fundraiser for them. Next, you can find our Cover Your Asp tour dates at activeselfprotection.com. And our next one is, what's our next one, Neil? Des Moines? Is Des Moines our next one? In August? Am I right on that? Boise? Wait, when's the next one?
Oh, look at me. I'm so much bigger than you.
Yeah.
August 8th and 9th in Des Moines is our next one that's coming up.
There you go. So August 8th, 9th in Des Moines. We got Boise, Idaho coming up. We got a couple others that are on the agenda right now, so come and join us there. And our next live seminar, you stole my thunder on that one earlier today, is July 21st. And that one is protecting the vulnerable. And in protecting the vulnerable and dealing with the vulnerable people in your life, whether that's a special needs child, whether that is an aging parent, whether that is a non-defending spouse or something like that, then Stephanie Widener is going to kind of lead the charge on that one, though I'll be around to hang out a little bit too. Then I think August, we're going to do legal and moral principles of self-defense.
That's the rumor.
Pretty legit. That's the rumor. Yep. And yeah, we got a couple more fun ones after that. So what else you got for us today, Neil?
I've got some questions here that I want to go through that we've got. The one that I promised.
Bubble water from my friends, San Diego County gun owners. They're awesome.
There you go. A shameless plug is always a good thing. So
yeah. All right. So SBG says, interested in knowing what action should be after police arrive to a shooting I'm involved in. Assuming I've holstered since the incident stopped. Assuming I wait to be approached to disclose I discharge. Yeah. Okay. So when the cops show up, a couple things. Number one, you want to make sure you don't have any gun in your hand. Okay. Cops get real twitchy when they're responding to armed robberies. And when they find a dude with a gun in his hand, they have this real tendency to point guns at him. And you do not want to be that person. So if you want to holster up, so again, I feel like he's driven off, he's gone, whatever, and I can safely put the gun away. Perfect. Do so. The threat is passed. If you can't, maybe you've got a bad guy proned out. You know, you've taken a bad guy at gunpoint and he's proned out and you're waiting there. Okay, so, you know, stay right there, dude. If you move, I'm going to shoot you. Then you see the reds and blues. And again, when I see those reds and blues, the gun gets put down and my hands get put up. Okay. Hi, officers. Nice to see you. Here's my hands. And expect the cops to cuff everyone. And if you did put your gun away in your holster, expect them to take that gun from your holster and don't fight them on that. It's fine. It's evidence anyways, right? It's gonna, that gun is gone. You might get it back, but I would assume that it just went to Narnia, that you're never going to see that gun again. I would strongly recommend at that point that there's two schools of thought here, and I'm going to give you both schools of thought. Masada Ayub suggests 5 things that you say, 5 things that you say, I'm the victim, and you say that man, you know, tried to stab me with a knife or shoot me with a gun or robbed us, whatever. Number 2, I will sign the complaint. So in other words, I am the aggrieved party. I will sign the complaint. Number 3, here are any witnesses. There's all the witnesses. Number 4, here's any evidence. So there's his knife or whatever. And number 5, I will cooperate fully after I have the benefit of counsel. That's the 5 things. Neil, I got those 5 right?
that sounds right.
Yeah, my Mag 40. What's that?
Yep. I'd have to check my notes from Mag 40.
Mag
yeah,
40
I think
for the win.
Yep.
Every attorney I know though just says, listen, the reality is shut up and let them do their investigation and say, I would like to speak to my attorney. And don't just say, I would like to speak to my attorney. Say, I invoke my right to counsel, and I will invoke my right to remain silent until I've spoken to counsel. And you can't, that doesn't mean sitting on the phone and talking with your lawyer. If you want to call your lawyer, hey, I need you to come here right now. You're not going to have a phone conversation with your lawyer. That's not privileged communication because anybody can hear it. Sitting in a room with your lawyer is where that is. So the lawyers that I know say, shut up. You get this thing when you're done called, when you're under adrenaline, called logorrhea. And yes, that sounds like diarrhea. It's diarrhea of the mouth. And you say and you talk and you just justify your brain's processing, and you got to teach yourself, shut up. If you watch a badge cam and you watch an officer involved shooting, you know what they tell an officer that's been involved in a shooting? They tell him two things. Okay. So his supervisor shows up. So he's been in a shooting, bang, bang, bang. His supervisor shows up. He says two things. Number one, turn your badge cam off. Number two, it's because we've got it and we want to save that, right? Number two, shut up and go sit in your car. Don't talk to nobody. Don't call nobody. Go shut up, because their dash cam is recording as well. Go sit in your car. Don't talk to nobody and shut up, because you say all kinds of stupid things when you're under adrenaline and under logorrhea. So that's what they tell officers, because then their union rep is going to show up. Their lawyer is going to show up and start doing that process and going to take them away and give them a chance to sleep and all that. Your lawyer probably wants that same thing for you. So every attorney I know tells you to shut up. Now, Masada Ayub, who is a nationally recognized expert, instead says to do the 5 things. Which one's right? I think if you can actually control your logorrhea to say just those 5 things, those 5 things won't hurt you. What are the chances of you saying something stupid while trying to say the 5 things? Probably high.
In my case, very high.
So it's safer to just say, I want to speak to my counsel and I invoke my right to speak to counsel before I answer any questions.
Yep. And
then have your attorney present when any questions are asked of you. Bruce Johnson said, what about off-body carry? Nope. The problem with off-body carry is you can't get to it fast enough. I've never seen anybody be able to get a sub 2-second draw to first shot with off-body carry. And if you're not at least that fast, you're too slow into the fight, is what we see on real videos again and again and again. It also means that wherever you're carrying that gun has to be an infant to you. You can never put it down because of the safety risks involved. And since you can never put it down, it's better to just have it on your person where you know you can't put it down. So I don't recommend off-body carry at all.
There are a significant amount of people that will tell you that it's okay, you just need to train with it. So I would highly recommend that you try that and go to a range that will allow you to do whatever your off-body carry is. I've got a student that carries in a purse on a regular basis, and when she comes to class, she carries in a holster. So I challenged her, you know what? Let's see what happens. And from her holster, she can consistently get shots on target in 1.2, 1.4 seconds. Very good. From her purse, it was closer to 4 seconds.
Yep.
And it wasn't real consistent. I'd say 4 was the average. And so if some of them are at 2s, then imagine what draws our average up. I mean, it's just not a consistent way to do it. It causes a lot of issues, and there's some safety concerns there too, because I think the typical off-body carrier, and again, I'm just saying what the typical one that I've seen is typically a woman that carries it in her purse, because the women carry purses. The other thing that women typically have with them in a lot of cases is children. And you've heard enough stories of, kids getting into mom's purse and doing bad things, and bad things can happen from that. So I just tell people, I'm like, man, that is, in my opinion, the worst way to carry. If you can do it on your body, that's by far a better way to keep the gun secure and safe from anybody that should not be handling it.
I don't know. What do you think, Neil? You think that we should have Stephanie do a seminar on women's concealed carry choices?
Hey, that seems like a good idea.
I think we should make her do that. That milkshake will bring all the fun to the yard.
Oh boy, can you imagine? Are you going to do one on 1911s then? Because that's what
I'm actually going tomorrow to film videos, including on the 1911.
Oh, great!
I'm going down. Remember Danny and Cheryl Todd's gun store in Avondale that we visited?
Oh yeah. I'm
going out there to film tomorrow for Aspects.
Cool. Hey, I got I got another one here that we're going to get to real quick here. This is more about mob stuff. It's not about, really on the topic of tonight, but it's very fresh and in everybody's minds right now. So take a minute and talk about this, John.
All right. Stephen Allsbrooks asked, John, are you justified in using deadly force if a mob tries to yank you out of your car? Let's just take the mob out of it. Bottom line is that you always have to check your own state's laws. Okay. But generally speaking, I'm speaking in generalities here. You check your state's laws. Does everybody understand? I am not a lawyer. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I am not giving you legal advice, but I can tell you what the general legal principle is as somebody who is an expert in deadly force law. Generally, your car, and when you are in it, an occupied vehicle is very similar to your home. And if somebody tries to remove you by force from your vehicle, generally speaking, that can be reasonably considered a deadly threat. So now we are talking about a forcible felony. So grand theft auto is a felony, somebody trying to steal your car, and of course a mob trying to pull you out of the car is probably not trying to steal your car. They're probably trying to hurt you, right? And now that is a felony, and it is a forcible felony because they are doing so by applying force. And so the question is, at its foundation, is it justifiable to use deadly force to stop a forcible felony in progress? And the answer is yes. So it is generally defensible in court, legally, morally justifiable to use deadly force to stop a forcible felony in progress. Some states, like Arizona, have particular crimes that are codified that you can use deadly force to stop those crimes. Kidnapping is one of them. Invasion of an occupied structure is another one. Unlawful entry of an occupied structure, unlawful entry of an occupied vehicle. Now, it's very different than if they are entering an unoccupied vehicle, right? So if they're trying to steal your car and you're not in it, that's a different thing. But if it's an occupied vehicle and somebody's trying to pull you out of it, generally speaking, because they will either want to steal it or they want to hurt you, that's a forcible felony. And generally speaking, courts are pretty unanimous here that deadly force is justifiable to prevent that. Certainly in a mob setting, if somebody goes, hey, I'm going to yank this guy out of his car and beat him to death like we saw in the Rodney King riots in the 90s, you're defending your life. And if your life is at risk, and I think somebody in a mob situation pulling you out of your car certainly puts your life at risk, then you can use deadly force to stop that. So I hope that answers your question. Neil, what do you think? Am I in the right ballpark on that?
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think we've got to do what we've got to do at the time, but it's got to be within reasonable guidelines. And if that's what a reasonable person would do, then that's for sure what you've got to do.
All righty. We have any more?
There's some more talk on off-body carry here. And I just want to kind of go back to it. The fanny pack carry that a couple of people have brought up in the comments here, and I've just put up there. John, you talk about it first. I want to hear what you have to say.
I will say this: 99% of fanny packs suck for carrying a gun in. Okay, they're almost always zipper controlled, and so you got to grab this zipper and unzip and do all this stuff, and they're very difficult to get in the fight. Now that said, I might be working right now with Sam Dazonia and her team at the Wilderness, making a fanny pack that actually works for a gun. It goes from that. So that might be okay. I would consider a fanny pack to actually be on body carry because you're clicking it on you, so it's just a location on your body. That's what I'd say. And Mr. Duct Tape King. Oh, there it is. Okay, that took me a while. John Lovell has a video drawing from a Vertex backpack in 1.6 seconds. I actually did that with him on camera at SHOT Show a couple years ago. And if I position the backpack right in front of me and I have a hold of the zipper big shebangity that lets it move, then yes, okay, fine. If the backpack's in front of me. Now, if I have to reach behind me, whip this backpack around, pull it out in front of me, grab a hold of this and drive it out, I think we're in a bad spot. I would also say in that moment, that backpack is actually on body. But again, now I have to never put that backpack down. That backpack has a gun in it. I can literally never put it down. And so if I'm going to never put my backpack down, because if I put my backpack down, I now have an unsecured, accessible weapon to somebody else. That's terrible. Now that's not allowable. So with that restriction in mind, why wouldn't I just put it on my body? I've seen, okay, so John does a 1.6 draw to first shot. from a Vertex backpack under ideal circumstances. And I consider John an acquaintance. I got nothing but respect for John Lovell. Okay.
He is John Lovell, though.
I mean, he's sexy
Right?
too.
Yeah, it's got great hair.
Neil, on your on body, what was your draws to first shot the other day on body?
I actually pulled my best .7 a couple of weeks ago in Sioux Falls at lunchtime in class.
So from that to another 0.9 seconds, how many shots do you think you can reasonably get on target?
At least one more, if not two, maybe three, if I really push it.
Oh, come on, man. I watch you pull freaking 0.2 splits before when you're jamming. Mr. Humble.
I mean, I can probably get a few out there on a good day. And again, there's some people sitting in these comments that have been with me on a bad day, so they know.
Yeah. But if you say, hey, on our best day, we could pull a 1.6 from this, this Vertex bag, which I'm not against. Again, I got nothing but respect. But I can shoot 5 shots in 1.6.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather be doing that. Or I could do 4 shots in 1.6. My gracious, why wouldn't you rather do that? I've seen John draw from concealment on his person too. Trust me, he's way faster.
Right. Yeah. I would not want to be in a gunfight with that man unless he's on my side. If he's on my side, for sure.
Yeah, I'll take him with me to my gunfight, but I don't want to fight him.
Yeah, exactly. And back to the whole fanny pack thing, I think it really comes down to the equipment because it's, at that point, it really becomes the holster, and it's not a lot different than other holsters. We tell people don't carry an Uncle Mike's for that specific reason. It's a garbage holster, and so don't do it. So if you're going to do it in a fanny pack, it is on body. There are some advantages and disadvantages, and you're gonna give some stuff up in that a fanny pack is also a strap that is around your body that could turn into a handle for a bad guy. And just another thing to consider. So I'm not completely against it. It's just don't take the thing off and have the right one and have a good one. So,
now I always say, number one, if you're going to carry with a fanny pack, that requires a white pair of tennis shoes and calf length socks, right? Because you got to look like a dad if you're going to do that. Now that said,
baby.
There you go. I actually have a fanny pack from the wilderness that I use when I go for a walk. And because it lets me carry a big gun and a first aid kit. And I've needed a first aid kit on my walk before where I had a woman that had her dog attack another dog and there's blood everywhere and all this stuff. So I get that. Again, it's attached around your body. I use it to carry a big gun on my walk, but only because we've designed it such that I literally go grab that gun and go. So it is in the fight. I can get hits out of the fanny pack in around 1.3. And I can show you my average this afternoon. I was doing some dry fire stuff and I had a 1.00 average draw to first shot in my draw turning today. So I'd rather have 1 than 1.3.
Yeah. Somebody just put in the comments that Lovell has recorded a .7 from appendix, and I absolutely believe it.
I believe it 100%.
Having hung out with that guy, I'm a huge fan of that guy. I'm literally, I would take him in my gunfight over John Correa because.
Hey!
Well, you support my family. I'd rather we don't risk you. How's that? Is that a fair way to put it?
No, I think that's just you finding a reason that you just like John.
Right.
All right. Any other questions, bro?
No, I think that we're pretty well wrapping it up. There's a lot of thank yous and a lot of fanny pack conversation going on right now. So we dug into a good rabbit hole with that. It was pretty fun. I want to tell everybody thank you for being here. This was a great time. We're going to be doing these on a monthly basis with different topics every time. We practiced a little bit with the lessons learned. We've done the church security. Our Cover Your Ask tour is changing a little bit where we're doing some of the seminar stuff online as we go. It gives us the opportunity to save a little bit of time with our scheduling and our training and our travel. But what it has done is it's turned our 2 one-day classes into 1 2-day class that flows so much better.
Yeah, it really does. We made a lot of improvements.
Yeah, I think people are going to get a lot more out of it as we go forward. So,
Corona.
Yeah, and COVID has really thrown a wrench into our training for sure. We had to cancel a few classes. There's some messes, but I'm working with about 5 different cities right now, guys in different cities right now. 2021 is going to be great. We're probably going to get 1 or 2 more yet this year. And then the national conference, folks, if you can make it to Kansas, please do. It is a blast. We had so much fun with this thing last year. So many people learned so much, and it's just a good time, and it's for a very worthy cause.
It's going to be better this year than it was last year, because last year was our first run. And so it was like, what are we doing? How does this work? And everybody had fun. This year, we're going to still work Stephanie ragged, but at least this year we'll know how we're going to work her ragged. And that'll be good.
The new ranges have gravel in them now. So the mud, we won't have the mud, even if it does rain.
Mud wrestling? Forget it. I'm not going.
Yeah. I mean, we'll figure out a place to go mud wrestle.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been my joy to have you. If I could ask you one last favor, if you got something out of this, tell a friend, and come to next month's and bring a friend with you. And we would love to have you at any of our events. And so I'm always available to you. And you can always find us through our Facebook page, through the YouTube channel, and my public figure page as well. So if you want to private message me, or you need something personally from me, go find my public figure page. It is, very artfully described as John Correa. And then you can shoot me a message there, and I'm happy to help. Okay. God bless you, everybody.